In Psalm 45 verses 4 and 5, which we sang earlier, which refers to Jesus Christ, we read these words, "And in thy majesty ride prosperously because of truth and meekness and righteousness, and thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Thine arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies." This white horse then has gone forth conquering and to conquer, history long, from Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria, to Rome, throughout the Roman Empire, and to the uttermost parts of the earth, to pick up some of the ideas and language of the book of Acts. This white horse rode first of all in what we call the Middle East, then into southern Europe, and then into North Africa, where it was blocked for a time by the Sahara Desert. Then, in the early Middle Ages, the white horse turned north and came into northern Europe. In more recent times, what we call the modern period, the white horse crossed the Atlantic to North America and, in a time, South America, further south into Africa, further east into Asia, then to Australia and the South Sea Islands. The white horse going forth, conquering and to conquer. That's the history of Christian missions. And this has been going on for almost 2,000 years since Christ's ascension, through the preaching, catechizing of children and lecturing of the Christian church, which of course implies the training of Christian ministers. This has been done in the Institute Church and on the mission field, which of course involves the worship and prayer of the people of God. This includes the giving and the witnessing of the saints. This involves books and pamphlets and tapes and DVDs and radio and TV, though there's not too much of good stuff on TV. But in various places, in various ways, it's the white horse going forth, so that the elect church is gathered out of the four corners of the earth, the one holy, Catholic and Apostolic Church of our Lord Jesus Christ. The white horse going forth to conquer victoriously. Then there's the red horse. And if the white horse is the gospel and its progress, the red horse, in short, is war. War. The colour red signifies anger and blood. That's war. The rider of the red horse carries a great sword. That's war. The rider is told to go forth to take peace from the earth. That's war. It is referenced here that they are to go and to kill one another. It's not a reference to persecution. In persecution, there is no killing of one another. It's one way in persecution. But the killing of one another refers to things military. This red horse, then, rides forth, and we know his work in the various wars of the New Testament age. For instance, the barbarian attacks on the Roman Empire under, for instance, Attila the Hun. The Saxons, the Jutes, the Angles invading Britain. The Vikings and the Magyars invading parts of Europe in the 1800s, etc. The Saracens and the Crusades in the Middle East. The 100 Years' War. The Wars of the Roses. World War I, World War II, the Falklands War, the Iraq War, the Vietnam War, wars between China and Japan and Asia, the conquests of the Aztecs in the Americas, wars in Africa, wars all around the world, civil wars, revolutions, invasions, wars of empires, All sorts of wars. And included in the whole idea of the red horse and war are such things as war gods, and the war economy, and armies, and uniforms, and prisoners of war, and the draft, and generals, and spies, and military training, and weapons, swords and spears, or machine guns, mortars, missiles, nuclear bombs, biological war, chemical war, nationalism and propaganda, the rumours of wars, cold wars, diplomacy, treaties, logistics, medals, blood, heroes, cowards, traitors, destruction, carnage, war on land, war on sea, war in the air, total war. And this is the red horse, riding forth in the history of the world. And then there is the black horse in verses 5 and 6. And if the first white horse is the gospel, and the second red horse is war, the third black horse is scarcity and famine. Let me show that to you. The rider on the black horse carries balances or scales used to measure out food carefully. You didn't measure out your food tonight, I dare say, on scales. But here they're measuring it out carefully on a balance. The measure mentioned in the text is about 1.5 pints. And the estimates vary somewhat. But this quantity is about one man's subsistence for one day, if he's eating wheat, and a bit more if he's eating barley, because wheat is more expensive. The reference in the text is to a measure of wheat for a penny. And the penny is, I have a good authority, one man's wages for one day. This passage then deals with the bare minimum food for survival. If a man can work, what about his wife and children? How many children does he have? So he's eking out an existence day by day. And black comes in here because it is the colour of scarcity and famine. Jeremiah 14 verse 13 and Lamentations 5 verse 10. And this is the way of the last 2,000 years. Many people today in various parts of the world do not have enough to eat, or have barely enough, so that there is widespread throughout our world hunger, starvation, and flowing from that, ill health. Many parts of Africa, for instance. And in previous ages, it was far worse, because it wasn't just the people in Africa, it was just about everybody, apart from the rich. So this third seal then, the black horse, deals with poverty and food, economics and inflation, all of which are included in this package, agriculture and trade, empty bellies and crying children, and famine relief agencies, all embraced under this black horse. This isn't all, though, because the text also says this: "See thou hurt not the oil and the wine." And wine and oil bespeak plenty and luxury. In the midst of all this starvation and all these people getting it tight, don't damage the wine and the oil, because there's a precious few side by side with the poor who are rich. And whatever you do, make sure there's plenty of luxuries for them.